Good evening and welcome to another exciting episode of Axiom Flux, Series 4, Episode 20. Today is March 25th, 2018. Tonight we are going to be speaking about the Islamic State and Deep State. Today's panel consists of PJ.
He's got a mic problem.
Chrisy.
Evening all.
We've got Greg. His mic is muted, and we've got Stav.
Hi. All right, Lopi.
Hello, my darling. And we got Surfer as well, whose mic is muted.
Evening.
All right, guys. First, I think what we should do is explain to a lot of people what the difference between Deep State and Islamic State is. And I've got the definitions from our good friend Wikipedia. And I'll post the so you can somebody can share it, PJ, somebody, because I'm not technically inclined. This one is the definition of Islamic State. An Islamic State is a type of government primarily based on the application of Sharia law, disposition of justice, maintenance of law and order. From the early years of Islam, numerous governments have been founded as Islamic. However, the term Islamic State has taken on more specific connotations since the 20th century. The concept of the modern Islamic State has been articulated and promoted by ideologues as Ayatollah Khomeini, Israr Ahmed, and Sayyid Qutb. Like the earlier notion of the caliphate, the modern Islamic State is rooted in Islamic law. It is modeled after the rule of Muhammad. However, unlike Caliphate governments, which are imperial despotisms or monarchies, the modern Islamic State can incorporate modern political institutions such as elections, parliamentary rule, judicial review, and popular sovereignty. Today, many Muslim countries have incorporated Islamic law wholly or in part in their legal systems. Certain Muslim states have declared Islam to be their state religion or their constitutions, but do not apply Islamic laws in their courts. Islamic states, which are not Islamic monarchies, are referred to as Islamic republics. That's the definition of Islamic law or Islamic State. Should we go ahead and do the definition of the deep state, or shall we continue on speaking of Islamic State and then give the definition of deep state when we get to start to that?
Well,
what do you think?
What am I sharing? Can you see this on the screen?
Yes.
Right. Well, I'll go straight to the deep state. And I'll click on that tab, and then you can read that Lopi to get a general idea. This is Wikipedia, as you know.
Yes.
So, is that the right page for you?
Yes.
Okay, away you go then.
In the United States, the term deep state is used within political science to describe influential decision-making bodies within the government that are relatively permanent and whose policies and long-term plans are unaffected by changing administrations. The term is often used in a critical sense. I'm not going to try that word. Vis-a-vis the general electorate to refer to the lack of influence, popular democracy has on these institutions and decisions they make. The term was originally coined in a somewhat pejorative sense to refer to similar, relatively invisible state apparatus in Turkey and post-Soviet Russia with respect to the United States. The concept had been discussed in numerous published works by Mark blah blah and David Brown, Peter Dale Scott, Mike Lofgren, Kevin Shipp, and Michael Wolff. While definitions vary, the term gained popularity among the various groups, primarily supporters of Donald Trump conspiracy theorists. During 2016 US presidential election, in opposition to establishment Republican and Democratic candidates. Since Trump's inauguration, the term had been used by commentators to argue that the deep state involving the FBI, CIA, NSA, former President Barack Obama, and Hillary Clinton is aiming to delegitimize the Trump presidency and thwart his policy goals. I
Okay.
guess, oh, here we go. The actual definition. I thought that was the definition. The term deep state was defined in 2014, a former Republican, as a hybrid association of elements of government and parts of top-level finances and industries that is effectively able to govern the United States without reference to the consent of the governed and expressed through the formal political process. The concealment of the state, Professor Jason Royce Lindsay argues that even without conspiratorial agenda, the term deep state is useful for understanding aspects of the national security establishment in developed countries, with emphasis on the United States. Lindsay writes that the deep state draws power to the national security and intelligence communities, a realm where secrecy is the source of power. Alfred McCoy states that the increase in the power of the U.S. intelligence community since September 11 attacks has built a fourth branch of the U.S. government that is in many ways autonomous for the executive and increasing autonomous from the executive and increasingly so. In the journal Foreign Affairs, UCA law professor John D. Michaels discusses Trump and the deep state and argues that the concept relevance is quite limited in the United States. He states that it's more useful perspective in the study of developing countries such as Egypt, Pakistan, and Turkey, where shadowy elites in the military and government ministries have been known to countermand or simply defy democratic directives. The term has been appropriated by Breitbart News and other conservative and far-right news outlets, where supporters of the Trump administration have been used to support the variety of conspiracy theories. It has been dismissed by authors for the New York Times and the Observer. The University of Miami professor Joseph blah blah, I can't say it, I'm not going to try, says the concept has been very popular among conspiracy theorists, whether they call it deep state or something else. According to whistleblower Edward Snowden, the deep state is not just the intelligence agencies, it is really a way of referring to the career bureaucracy of the government. These are officials who sit in powerful positions, who don't leave when presidents do, who watch presidents come and go, and influence policy when they influence policy, they influence presidents. That's deep state definition.
Right. Okay.
Honestly, I think it leads into other things. Even though they could talk about conspiracy theorists, we have to most conspiracy theorists are analysts. You know, they are trying to find answers to things.
Right, before we go on, is there any other general tabs you want me to highlight before I come off the screen sharing and we have a bit of a chat, or do you want to move on and leave the chat till after you've covered the bits and pieces? What do you want to do, Lopi? I've got a couple of articles and things to say that I'll be bringing. But what do you want to do? Do you want to?
Those ones are good. I'm good with those. Basically, what I wanted to say in quick definition of it is, most people, when you say Islamic State, you're not you're thinking it in a political sense, and that is the politically correct way of stating it. But we're not politically correct. As of masses of people, unfortunately, the younger people are not are more politically correct, but us old people are not politically correct. You know what I'm trying to say.
I'm not old.
Right.
Yeah, well, we're not politically correct generally, and what I'm saying is, Islamic State, that term is politically correct, and in reality, it is all that is Sharia law, is all that you see happening on your streets that is involving Muslims. The hijab, the burqa, the wife having to be escorted everywhere, you are not allowed to drive because you're a woman. You have to walk behind your husband. Your son is more important than you are, even though you brought him in the world. You know, the stoning for doing something incorrect, that is Sharia law. That is the Islamic State. Deep State, they are defining it as being all the conspiracy theories and stuff like that, the questioning of the government, the fact that Deep State is really not what we see. It's the puppet masters of what we see. That's Deep State, the untouchables. And I think I'm going to give it on to Stav. Go on.
There's a thing called cross-party consultation. Now, cross-party consultation was brought in to effectively get all parties that were involved in the government, in the electoral systems, to agree a plan that would go beyond the term of office that they might receive. And that is a good thing, because obviously, there's stuff that's going to take more than 4 years or 5 years, whatever term, the government that's in at the time have got, and it needs to have some continuity. And basically that was, the Deep State. It was an agreement between all the possible governing bodies that they would work towards a general goal, and they wouldn't change it whilst they was in office. But obviously, like most things, it's now been taken advantage of and been used now to, disguise corruption as continuity. So Deep State is in effect what, all of them are linked in with. They, that is going to be the backbone. And obviously, it's more about the individuals not getting control of that cross-party consultation, and therefore sort of like starting a Deep State of their own making. The problem I've got with the Islamic State and stuff like that, and all these religious-based ideologies and stuff, is plain and simple. They're based on a belief system which, is basically a fantasy. You've got, people going about Sharia law, and they forget that there's parts in the Bible that say about an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, which is very similar to Sharia law. So, you know, faith and religion should be left out of politics. And nowadays, a lot of people are turning away from religion. And I think that the establishment are realising that, and they're strangling what they can out of it whilst they've still got it to use against people. Whilst people are still slightly religious, because religion is losing people hand over fist, they are they're going to try and make a divide between the different religions. If we didn't have religion in politics, we'd be able to make sort of like better decisions and stuff, and it'd be a better world.
If we didn't have religion in politics, we definitely would not have Christianity. We would not have Judaism. We would not have Muslims. We wouldn't have all that. We'd all be people.
That's it. That's the way forward.
Stav, you said you had some articles?
Yeah, it's just basically following on from what you've already sort of said, what the deep state and Islamic State is. Well, I concur with Chrisy on what he says, but we've got to understand or consider, I think, well, I consider, let's put it that way, I consider that the danger, that there was meant to be a separation of church and governance many years ago in this country, centuries ago. In actual fact, there was a separation in the respect of governance, parliament and government and church, which was meant to have been done. But we won't go over that history because it's very not complicated. It's too long for tonight's discussion. But the problem is when you get a influence from a religion, they can come in and become part of the deep state, as you've outlined, or governance, if you like, or in between, whichever. They can still today influence politics and governance. They can still do that today, and that's something that shouldn't be underestimated. Even though more people are becoming atheists and you know, have other spiritual ways of looking things, and perhaps even in the, you know, scientific way of things with you know, all of what's going on just recently. So it still can be a very powerful thing if it's allowed to creep into governance and deep state, shall we say, and the rest of whichever, the puppet master. They can still become a puppet master, as they've done centuries ago in that respect. So we must always consider them. And I think we're in a situation where we're in very dangerous times, where one particular ideology, it doesn't matter which way you look at it, there's so many different factions within a religion. Let's not forget that as well. There's, you know, different interpretations of one book, and there's so many factions of the religions. So it depends on what. I think the danger is overlooking that, and also the fact that some of these deep state big corporates can see there's a lot of mileage in going that way, and these people that have heavily influence, or actually are the shadow government, another word for a deep state, can use these ideologies. But there's a danger in that. There's a danger in that, because these ideologies, this a particular one that's expanding at the biggest rate of any of the religious ideologies, you know, that is dangerous ground. It's dangerous ground, and you know, careful what you wish for, some people, as they say, because if it gets embedded to the point, it may even take over, and these people that have propagated it, perhaps, if we can entertain that thought, may end up on the receiving side of it. So it's very complicated, and it's very dangerous times. That's all I'd like to say. Now, about Islamic State, Islamic State isn't a thing called ISIS or Daesh or Al Qaeda. It's not a recent thing. the caliphate, as you know, the idea of a caliphate has been there since the days of Muhammad, and you know, the expansion of the Islamic conquest during its most successful period, which is the Umayyad Caliphate, which is the second caliphate. That empire was bigger than the Roman Empire. So, you know, and it was only for the fact that it got into southern France, Septimania, and also almost got into mid-France, but it was halted by a famous battle called the Battle of Tours, and it was by a Frankish king against the ruler of Iberia at that time, which we know as Spain. That's history, and it got stopped, and from then it just became part of this reconquistador thing, and then we go into the Crusades and all the rest, which we'll leave that for another time if we ever do discuss it. So, but there was, you know, if there is the actual wooden facts, if you look at that and say, well, it wasn't for this Charles Martel, this Frankish commander in 721 or something like that, that defeated the Islamic conquest, we may have all been praying 5 times a day, and that would be what would be ruling the world as we know it today. Who knows? I don't know. But it was, so it's been a very powerful thing in the past. And like I say, certain ideologies of the ideology, so to speak, certain factions of it want that to return. And there we are. So we've got to be careful with it all, and whatever. The deep state, like you say, shadow government. I'll share something here quickly with you, if that's okay. Let's have a look, see if it's sharing. Hopefully it is. Will it share? Are we sharing? Yes, there we go. All right.
Yes.
Okay, I'll show an article here. I mean, we live in the UK here. We know and we've heard all about the Congress and everything in America and their D-state, shadow government, etc., etc. Now, who will be the powerful people in our government? It's no big secret, and it's all open to see. We have certain people in our government which are called senior civil servants. All of these people earn more per year through their wage than the Prime Minister of the country. They're not elected by the public to these positions. They're put in positions by cabinets of governments and etc. of the time, and making them a civil servant, especially a senior civil servant, means that they cannot be removed by ministers or even the Prime Minister. So they're in a very good position. These people, they're in a very powerful position within government, which we say perhaps shadow government. I've got a list here. This is a bit of an old article. It's 2014. I didn't get the update one, but it's just to give you the general idea. Here are the lists of all the people who are senior civil servants, and here is their salary, right, per year: 150,000, 150, 165, 169, almost above £150,000. They all earn more. Some of them 200, £250,000 a year. Stephen Lord's first parliamentary council cabinet office, 250,000, and this list goes on and 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 on. And this ain't all of them, by the way. So we got there's 170 there, and there's approaching 4 figures of people very much in a similar position as this. Now, these cannot be removed by ministers or prime ministers or anybody. So, and a lot of these, I think there's one down here. I think he's part of the NHS. I think he left in 2014, but I think he was put in place in 2002. So that's 12 years. And I think you had 1, 2, 3 different governments in that time taking power or coming into power, and he stayed in that position. So, I mean, these guys haven't got no aspirations of becoming a politician, because one, why would you want to become a member of parliament, a politician, an MP, when you can earn more money and you can't be sacked within 4 years or removed by the electorate? So just entertaining that idea, and maybe these are the moves and shakers that we have. They also have other things. Obviously, this is only their day job. But if you take this guy called Stephen Lovegrove, he's permanent secretary of the Ministry of Defence. There's nothing special about him, but if you look at what he used to do, I mean, this is all open. You can go on Gov and read it yourself. Prior to the MOD, he was permanent secretary for the Department of Energy and Climate Change. Stephen, 9 years at shareholder executive, was appointed chief executive in June 2007. Before that, he spent 10 years at Deutsche Bank, where he was the head of the European media team, working on a wide range of capital raisings, acquisitions, divestments, and in subsectors of the media industry. Before the city, Stephen, aged 5 years as a strategic consultant. Stephen also sat on the board of the London Organising Committee of the Olympic Games, Paralympic Games, and is a trustee of the Charities Aid Foundation. Now, I just thought, well, let's just have a look at the Charity of Aid Foundation, which I think I've got here somewhere. They're called the CIF. It's actually a bank.
I've done a bit of research on that, guys, myself, Stav, recently.
Ah, good. Have you got information to me on it? Because I just basically going to outline what the CIF was, PJ. Yeah, Mike's a bit rusty, mate.
Yeah, it is. Sorry, I apologise. My computer's got gremlins tonight. I don't know if you can hear me. Yeah, his wife. Well, her granddad is John Hare.
Ah, right.
So maybe you can go into more.
Well, I'll leave that for somebody else to have a look. I mean, I'll just leave a few links to whatever. Anyway, this guy is a trustee for these. He's a trustee, and I think there's other ministers that are trustees as well. So see our Charities Aid Foundation. Well, it's an actual bank of which you can deposit to any charity in the world. So if I just put in here search, right, let's put that for the argument's sake of tonight, let's put the word Islamic. So I'll put search in there, and see what it comes up with, if it's going to work. My computer will allow me. So what have we got here? Have we got? Right, we found 1,859 charities that we think will interest you. Only the first 500 are displayed. Now, these are all Islamic charities, which you can donate through this bank. Their turnovers of income range is 10 million. 10 million. You're talking millions with these charities. All right, their donations. You can carry on the list if you like. My point about this, now I've only put Islamic in for tonight, but you can put any charities in. They actually have accounts for every single charity that's around. And what I'm saying is that, you know, they have other interests, and these people control like aid, charity, deposits, whatever, investments all around to these things in the world, and charities is only one part of them. And I just thought I'd find that interesting, and you can do whatever you like if you want to do any extra more research in it. But there you are, it's a bank, and that's based in the UK. But it has banks and branches all over the world, even Russia, America, all over. So again, what makes these people more powerful than they are, other than a quick look on a government site giving you who the senior civil servants are. So I suggest people, if they want to find out more about who really is running things in the show, is it your elected MP, or is it these guys that are the most influential? I can kind of call them a deep state, I think. And they're not accountable to Joe Public because you don't vote them in. They have a nice wage, which is more than what the Prime Minister gets. And they can't even be sacked by the senior, well, they are the senior minister in this case, but they can't be sacked by the Prime Minister. So, and a lot of these guys are family members, there's junior ministers below them, keep it in the family, blah, 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 and on it goes. So there we are. That's
so basically what I call the puppet masters.
I think they are personally, and other people as well. But I mean, just that list is like eye-watering. I think it's somewhere that they say that the basic wages for these senior civil servants and the top earners, I think is somewhere around about 14 billion a year. So that's from the taxpayer's pocket, if you want to call it taxpayer, whatever. So what am I saying here? Well, I'll leave it up to your own minds to ponder that. It's just Googling around and looking around. I mean, I know there's a lot of people in America that patriots that are looking into their so-called SES, I think they call them over there, and deep state or whatever they want to call them. And I don't see many people looking into the side of things here in the UK or even within the Europe. I mean, I'm not even started with the Europe side.
Just while you've got your screen share up, Stav, can you put the EFA site up for the viewers and just briefly explain it, because that is connected to the European bit.
With the EFA?
EFA, yeah, please. Yeah.
Oh, I'll have to Google that. Let's see what we got. I don't know whether this is going to handle this type of searching. Oh, there's ETF. EFA.
No, you're gonna need to put the European Free Alliance in Google, because it'll bring up absolutely everything else apart from
yeah. Right, okay. Well, you can come in and explain things here if you like, PJ. It saves me rabbiting on, but
well, when we came across it, blimey, it must be a couple, 2-3 years back as well, at least. We did a.
Would you want the Wikipedia, or would you want the actual site?
Actual site, so they can see the list that's on there.
Okay.
I think that helps people get a bigger picture on, who the actual people are that are creating the world that we're living in.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
On top of these senior civil servants, you've got members that are all part of this, which is the European Free Alliance, which is the back door back into EU if Brexit ever did go through. So this is quite interesting at the very least.
I mean, got it in power, state and regional level 13. Elected 24 elected representatives in 38. These are massive. Behind the EFA, thousands of non-government organisations. They call them. Most of them got the actual EU offices in Brussels, and these European contracts, deals within countries, political movements, that they really do put the things out there. I mean, George Soros Group and all that lot are heavily involved, and all these other people. Anthropologists, they are. People go and check who anthropologists are. Have I got that right? Anthropologists? Have I? No, that's not right.
Philanthropy.
Philanthropist. I always get mud up, see? That's the brain. Don't get to my head. Philanthropist. Yes. I mean, we could spend hours and hours on here, and I could go through the links and whatever. But these are a big deal. They're very big in the European Green Alliance, and the Green parties are massive in Europe, including our own party, which isn't that big in this country, but they're very all much for this, and the college systems in our country, etc., etc., etc. So, is there anything you want to add to this in any specific ways, PJ? Because we could spend too much time on this tonight, and I'm trying to give somebody an idea of what our deep state is here and in Europe and all over the world. It's one big kind of a new world order, I guess, in its own right. But what is there anything you want to add, PJ?
Not really. I really want people to get their own view on it, so they've got to look at this sort of stuff. I'm just chucking out pointers.
Yeah, that's right. I think people need to join their own dots instead of listening to me on YouTube or people like us and saying this dot goes to that dot and that dot goes to that dot and that dot goes. Because if you do that, then people will say, "Oh, did you hear about that organisation? Well, it's this and it's that," and they haven't looked themselves. And that's the important thing about all of this. People bang on about it a lot over years, and it really is. You've got to do your own diligence. You've got to do your own research. Everybody has to be. If you're that interested and you want to find out, you'll do the research, and you can join your own dots your own way. But
Research
hopefully,
is
we'll
the
all
only
come.
way that they're going to learn and find answers for themselves and make questions for other things
Yes.
that they, find an interest in. Because what we find an interest in may not be as so interesting to somebody else, but the information that we give may create them to question something else. Just like this.
Yes. They actually might go down a slightly different rabbit hole and join dots that I couldn't join, because they approached it a different way and they went down a different rabbit hole, which exposes more that I couldn't have found because I went down a different route. There's so many routes to this. There's literally hundreds and perhaps thousands of different routes to all of this. That it's rooted so deep, and it's got like this over the past 100 years or whatever it is that these establishments got established, and how it is today and why the world is like it is today, and why it's so difficult for people to understand that, because they vote for a political guy or an MP for every 4 or 5 years, and they go, they don't listen to us. They don't listen to us. Well, because it's not about democracy with a government that's voted in by the people. It's beyond any of that. That is such a simple thing to put out there, and people just fall for that time and time and time again because they can't be bothered, or it must suit people not to question. I don't know. Perhaps they're comfortable in their life, whatever. But yeah, so there we are. I've run it in on too much,
All
I think, as it is, and I'm gonna stop sharing.
I'd like to take us back to Islamic State, and I've got a link here. I don't know. Am I able to screen share?
You can press the green arrow up on the top left, and then a little box will come up, and you say screen shares. Press it, and away you go.
It doesn't work for me. Oh well. I put the link inside the box there, and halfway down.
You want me like this one here, the BBC Com News World Middle East, that one?
Yes, and if you scroll down to the part that says where are its origins. Now I'm going to explain that this is talking about the Islamic State in the modern sense, in what we're seeing today, not the old days where it came from, but it's basically we're talking about today's what we're dealing with today. And I want to explain something before I read some of this to you. You have to understand that there were two major Islamic factions, types of religion. You have the Shiite and Hittites. They were at one point one group, and they split off because of their beliefs. One was more what we would call in the civilized world. One was more barbaric, and one was more laid back and easygoing, so to speak. So if you'll scroll halfway down, you'll see in bold what are its origins, and that's where I'm going to start.
What is what? Is that what you mean?
What are its origins? That's where it's going to start.
Okay,
Where I'm
origin.
going to bring it start up.
Okay. I think
Okay.
that's it. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. Away you go, Lopi. Beg your pardon.
Islamic State, or IS, can trace its roots back to the late Abu Musab at Zarqai, a Jordanian. In 2004, a year after the US-led invasion of Iraq, Zarqawi pledged allegiance to Osama bin Laden, a former al-Qaeda in Iraq, which became a major force in insurgency. There's a photo of him. After Zawahiri's death in 2006, AQI created an umbrella organization, Islamic State in Iraq, ISI, was steadily weakened by the US troops' surge and creation of Sawa, or Awakening, councils by the Sunni Arab tribesmen who rejected its brutality. See, there's your bit of history there. Baghdad, a former US detainee, became leader in the 2010 and began rebuilding ISI's capabilities. By 2013, it was again carrying out dozens of attacks in a month in Iraq. It also had joined the rebellion against President Assad in Syria, setting up the al-Nusra Front. In April 2013, Baghdad announced the merger of its forces in Iraq and Syria and creation of the Islamic State in Iraq and Levant, creating ISIS. The leader of al-Nusra and al-Qaeda rejected the move, but fighters loyal to Baghdadi split from Nusra and helped ISIS remain in Syria. At the end of December 2013, ISIS shifted its focus back to Iraq and exploited a political standoff between the Shia-led government and minority Sunni Arab community, aided by tribesmen and former Saddam Hussein loyalists. ISIS took control of the central city of Fallujah. In June 2014, ISIS overran the northern city of Mosul, and then advanced southwards towards Baghdad, massacring its adversaries and threatening to eradicate the country's many ethnic and religious minorities. At the end of the month, after consolidating its hold over dozens of cities and towns, ISIS declared the creation of a caliphate and changed its name to Islamic State. How much does the territory hold? Well, it has a lot, and it's increasing. The part that in September 2014, then director of the U.S. National Counterterrorism Center, Matthew Olson, said the Islamic State controlled much of the Tigris-Euphrates River basin, an area similar to the size of the United Kingdom, or about 100,000 square kilometers. That's 81,000 square miles. A year later, the U.S. Defense Department declared that IS frontlines is in much of the northern central Iraq, northern Syria, and been pushed back significantly by U.S. coalition airstrikes and ground operations. IS is could no longer operate freely in roughly 20-25% of populated areas in Iraq and Syria, where it once could, it said. The Defense Department estimated that IS had lost approximately 15,000 to 20,000 square kilometers of the territory of Iraq. What does I'm not going to keep going on about it, but basically, if you scroll down, you'll see a graph of foreign fighters in Syria and Iraq. And I'm not trying to go and say, oh, look, these are bad people, blah, 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 because I don't want my head chopped off, or get stoned. But I'm saying these are the supporters. This is where they come from. This is the ideology that they have. They have the old ideologies that we've already discussed in previous talks and earlier. These are the Shiites, Sunnis, and now, if you know anything about history, if you know about how much they hate each other, and how these different tribes would do anything to eliminate one and another because of religious reasons, because of what you would call old blood, because in all actuality, it all started like the hate between them all started like the Hatfields and McCoys. Somebody's pig went over on somebody's property and somebody ate it. It's similar to that. I'm not saying somebody's pig, they ate a pig. But what I'm saying, it is like the Hatfield and McCoy. Somebody did something they didn't like, and they formed their own group and they decided to have a blood feud. And
I think there's a lot of
unfortunately,
manipulation there, though, mate.
huh?
There's a lot of manipulation there.
Yes, because of religion.
The
And that's
fantasy
what
that everyone wants to kill each other suits the hidden agenda of the sort of like, you know, the elites, the rich. There's,
yes,
you know, when you look at the majority of people, regardless of religion, race, colour, creed, anything like that, the majority of people just want a better world for their children. You know, and they're being manipulated into thinking that the other people hate them and want to kill them and, you know, want to eradicate
that's
them.
me
And
for you. Yes. Well, the problem with that is, and you're quite right. The problem is media and the organized religion, because organized religion is for um basically, excuse the expression, the illiterate, the the weak-minded, the sheep, because
agreed.
you have somebody telling you what to interpret, how to feel, how to think, and they believe it. I mean, I grew up in a Muslim country. I don't think Muslims are bad people. When I grew up in Turkey, I was allowed to have my beliefs, my religion, and everything. Granted, it was a different time, but here's the thing: they allowed me, and I allowed them. My problem with these moderns, um, people, Islamic State, is the fact that they are trying to change a country to fit their beliefs. It's not their country, so you shouldn't try to change that country to what you left. That's my belief. If you came as a migrant into a country, if you came, let's just say, Chrissy, you come to America, yeah,
Yeah,
you want to, and you came from the UK, and in the UK you had your ways of doing things, and um, you got paid a certain wage for at McDonald's. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
the your new boss, and in America
yeah,
I'm going to pay you $7.25 because that's minimum wage. You wanting
yeah,
$10 for it because that's what you got in England. Well, I'm sorry. I'm not going to pay you $10 because you got it in England. This is
yeah.
America, and that's what they're trying to do is they're trying to get their wages in a new country. And that's not right. That's where I have my personal problems. It's not against Muslim, the religion, or the people. It's against the governmental tactics. And that's where you go back to the historically, that's where they feel entitled to do it. That's why I brought this up. Because
Can I,
the
can I tell you a little story, a quick story? When I was a child, I used to love playing war games. I used to run around with my guns, shooting imaginary folks and stuff like that. And my dad said to me one day, he caught me playing war, and he said, "Who are you shooting, son?" And so I turned around to him and I said, "I'm shooting Germans." Because way back when I was a kid, you know, the Second World War was the war that, you know, you looked and you played about. So I said to him, "I'm shooting Germans." And he stopped me and he said, "No, no, no, don't shoot Germans, shoot Nazis." And I was like, "But the Germans are Nazis." And he said to me, "No, son, think about it." He said, "There's plenty of Germans that don't want to hurt anybody, that just want to have a good life and not hurt anyone, not hurt us and not conquer. And, you know, there are hundreds of thousands of millions of good people in Germany. But the nasty ones, the Nazis, they're the ones that have taken over, and they're the ones that are you know, affecting your view on an entire country. Because most Germans didn't want to hurt anyone. It was the Nazis. And I always remember that. And now I view it pretty similar with Muslims and Islam. It's not the Muslims that are the problem. It's the extremists. And there are extremists on both sides. There are extremist Christians. There are extremist Muslims. There are extremists everywhere. And what they do is they hide behind a faith or, you know, a religion, a faith. They hide behind anything they can, anything that they can get to shield their nasty activities. You know, and it's like the paedophilia thing. You know, you've got people saying about like, oh, Muslim paedophiles. But the paedophiles hiding behind religion has happened for millennia. It's happened for centuries. And I think that the statistics prove that, you know, the worst religion for paedophilia is Catholicism. I'm not saying that all Catholics are paedophiles, but, you know, you've got people saying, oh, you know, you've got Muslim paedophiles. Well, you need to realise that by putting the Muslim in, you're going to be offending every single Muslim that isn't a paedophile, because you're almost tarring them with the same brush. And you're making them, that paedophile that has tried to use Islam to hide his nefarious activities, you're helping him get away with it, because all of a sudden, where everyone should look at him and say he is a paedophile, now people are feeling sorry for him because they're thinking, have you got an agenda, and are you scapegoating, you know, by putting the Muslim in it and taking away from what the guy is primarily, which is a paedophile. No, he's not his religion. He is a paedophile.
We need to stop labeling. Instead of saying, "Oh, look at that man, he's that Muslim pedophile," we need to say, "Oh, look look at Muhammad, Muhammad so and so name, surname, he's a pedophile." You got to stop generalizing like that, right? Is that what?
Yeah.
That's all what you're saying?
Yeah. You know, we should look at the wrong. I mean, you fight wrong uns wherever they pop up, regardless of who they are. The way I've lived my life, I've you know, especially the last few years, anything I see that I think is wrong, I fight. I protest about. I try to expose. If that's, you know, inside a religion, I'll try and do my best to actually keep the religion away from it, because it negatively impacts on a lot of other people that have got nothing to do with the initial transgressor of whatever situation. You've just got to look at it and say, this is wrong.
I just noticed that Predator Geoff joined us. Hello, Geoff.
Hello, Lopi. How are you? All right?
All right. I've got. I don't know. How long you've been listening or joined us. What we're talking about the Islamic and deep state.
Right.
Um,
I took a snooze earlier on because I was feeling very, very tired. So I went and had a little lie down, and
well, glad you
I set
decided to make it.
I set my phone alarm, but unfortunately I forgot to put my blooming clock forward because I think the clock had to go forward last night or something. So that's why
You're here now, Bron.
late. I'd be late for
You're
my
here
own
now.
funeral if I had a chance, you know.
Well, I've got a video here. If somebody wants to play it for us, we can. I'll put it in, but I want to
Do you want to do it, Geoff?
All right, PJ.
Hey, mate. Do
I
you
want
want to
to.
play this video?
Oh, me?
Yeah, if you're all
Oh,
right.
no, go on, you play it or whatever. I'll just sit back and listen, like, yeah. I haven't got a brilliant internet connection anyway anymore because I'm not with the old provider. So
Well, basically, we all know that I'm the resident female, and within the Islamic State, we have been talking about origins. We've been talking about their views and thoughts and how it works and everything. And I want to incorporate what it's like for females in the Islamic State. I've seen lots of videos about women with their
can I just give my take on it?
almost they look at it in a really positive aspect from their perspective, but in the same sense, in a Western sense, is very sad because they look at it. They wear the burqa because they say men, strangers, men will look at them and feel provoked because of their beauty.
Can I give you briefly my take on what I think about it all?
Yeah, sure.
The topic is the caliphate or the deep state in it, or Islamic State, caliphate, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Well, my take on it is very simple. I think Islam, as in their belief system, whatever you want to call it, I think it is basically incompatible with our way of life, or the way of life we used to have. But I don't think it's the overarching and critical problem that we've got. I think it's one symptom, and I think they're going to throw very many more symptoms at us, and I think it's being done deliberately by the deep state or the shadow government or whatever you want to call it. I believe that we have to deal with the fat controllers. That's my personal opinion. It's like
Agreed, mate.
it's very much like you're going down the motorway, your battery goes flat, and somebody says, "Oh, I got another battery I can stick on the car for you." And you say, "Oh, thanks very much." It gets you off the hard shoulder, but then that goes flat, and it goes flat because you haven't dealt with the source of the problem. And unfortunately, the source of the problem is the deep state. If you don't fix the alternator, every battery you put on is going to go flat. So you've got to get to the problem before you deal with the symptoms. In my opinion, that's the way I see it. So I mean, they could throw this at us to try and stir up a load of trouble. They could throw Islam at us and some extremists, very much like Chrisy said. I think probably the vast majority of people. I've been on holiday to a Muslim country. I've been to Tunisia, and the people there were absolutely lovely. They were good as gold. This was going back, it was about 2000 and, oh, blimey, no, I think it's 1999 or something like that. And the people were as good as gold. Never had a problem with them. And couldn't wish to meet nicer people. Well, I think, like Chrissy said, you know, the vast majority of every race are okay. They're not a problem. But you do get the odd one in any race. It doesn't matter whether you're, you know, black, pink, green, whatever color or anything. Like Chrissy said, the vast majority are no problem at all. You get the odd one that causes problems and what have you. I think, like I said, as far as once you've dealt with the deep state, got rid of the fat controllers, then I think, to be honest, to deal with the Islamic problem, all we got to do is restore the rule of law, as in English law. They come here to be culturally integrated. Well, they'll have to integrate. It's as simple as that. And if they break the laws of the land, then you deal with them as you would anybody else. I mean, ultimately, if they're repeat offenders or, you know, or continually troublemakers or whatever, then yeah, you could deport them, send them back from whence they came, and deal with it like that. But all you need is the rule of law, which is do no harm, injury, or loss. That's the basic rule of law. Yeah. That's the law that counts. Because you've got to live in a moral society. Either way.
I think a lot of it is the vicious circle that's made. And what seems to happen is you've got moderate people that only get exposed to extremists. Now, for instance, I can remember standing at a burger van 6 a.m. one morning in London. I've been out on the razzle with a few of my friends. A couple of them were Muslims. We were standing there eating bacon and sarnies and stuff like that, and one gets a phone call from his mother saying, "You've got to go to the mosque today. You haven't been, blah, blah, blah." And he got some right ear roll from his mum. And he's standing there after being out on the piss all night, eating a bacon roll with me. The guy is no way the Muslim that his mum thinks he is, his dad thinks he is. You know, he just wants to please them, like every good son or daughter should want to do for their parents. So when you get, for instance, a right-wing thug that claims Christianity but has never been inside a church other than a funeral or a wedding, when you get one of the right-wing extremists have a pop at the religion that his mum and dad hold dear, he takes it as a personal offence, and that makes him drop into almost an extremist, like Muslim category then. So you've got the extremists that think they're doing the right thing by, you know, exposing extremist Muslims, are actually making that so. And it works the other way round as well, because I know guys that are as good as gold, but when they see, you know, an extremist Muslim on the telly calling for Sharia law and whatever else, instantly it gets their back up and it makes them now become an extremist Christian. So you've got the vicious circle thing that's going on. And we've got the media to blame for that. And who controls the media? The elites. Obviously, it's the divide and conquer thing, and it all comes all the way back round. But when the moderates, which is the vast majority of everyone, fail to act and don't try and stop, you know, sort of the more extreme people in their communities from taking extremist actions, that is the biggest problem, because there's always going to be extremists, and you know, they're always going to try and take more moderate people and make them extremists, and that is because the moderates are letting them.
Well, I think we need, to be honest, Chrissy, the way I look at it is this: they've come here to culturally integrate, yeah. I'm opposed fundamentally to Sharia law because it makes exceptions within our system of law. And as far as I'm concerned, we should all be equal under the law, as you know. Yeah. But it's not just that. You can see there's lots of other problems, like, you know, they've got the female genital mutilations, which is their way of life. But they've come here for our way of life. And to us,
sorry to interrupt, Geoff. Can I just say though, that if you see what I'm saying, it's like, you know, that I believe a lot of foreign countries are told that we do male genital mutilation.
Yes, that's equally wrong, because that's abuse of a child. That's abuse.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, mate,
and
we don't blink an eyelid at kids getting circumcised, at boys getting circumcised for no medical reason.
yeah,
And
well,
that was happening on a wide scale.
Well, that is mutilation. It doesn't matter whether it's.
All right, gentlemen, this conversation.
Let me just finish what I was going to say. Whether it's circumcision of a male child or whether it's removal of the female part, it's irrespective. It's abuse, and it's harm, injury, or loss, and so it's in contravention to what our basic moral laws are, which is do no harm, injury, or loss. Very simply, so that would come under child abuse, regardless. There's no excuse. Religion, not in this culture. I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's Jews doing it or Muslims doing it, whatever. It's still an abuse either way. And there's another thing. What was the other thing I was going to touch on? Was halal foods. Now, we do not put our animals through that type of slaughter because we don't.
Can you hold that thought, please?
In this culture, hang on.
Can you hold that thought, please?
Right in this culture to put an animal through that. Now, so we shouldn't have halal certification of any shape or form in this country. And what they've done is they've made a two-tier system in this country where they can have exceptions to the rule because of religious beliefs. Now, okay, they can have their religious beliefs as long as it doesn't contravene the law, which is what they're doing. It's allowing the contravention of our law system, and it's creating a backlash. That's creating the backlash, and it's the deep state that's doing it. They know what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing, and they're creating like, for example, removing the word Easter off of Easter eggs to offend Christians. I mean, there isn't many Christians left, I don't think, or practicing ones in this country, but it's irrelevant. We've got our culture, our way of life. We have Christmas time, and Easter at Easter time. And what they're doing...
That was taken from another culture, though, bro.
Well, yeah, maybe so, but I mean, it's something we've used for hundreds of years, and it's now part of our accepted culture.
But that will fade, just like all different ceremonies and religions. They fade. They become different types of religions, different faiths. You know, we shouldn't hold on to stuff that is basically unnecessary.
Well, some people like it, whether, it's just to please their kids. They like to give their kids presents at Christmas time and all that, if that's what they like to do, that's not a problem. But I think what we need to do is to say, well, this is our culture. This is the way we live. And you're welcome here in this country. You're very welcome, but you have to abide by the law of the land. And it's very simple. And only our standard law. We shouldn't be making laws up to allow different, different exceptions because of a religion, a new religion or a new culture that's come into our culture. There's just our culture here in this. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. As simple as that.
Okay. I'd like to go ahead and play this video.
Hang on a second, Lopi. 1 second. I'm just saying, if we had a simple one-tier set of laws, there wouldn't be all the problems that we got.
Injury, harm, or loss, mate. What you said.
Yeah, injury, harm, or loss. Basically, that's it. Spot on, Chrissy. It's all you need. If it would.
That's right. See, the trouble is, Geoff, it's about blaming the players for the game, and the game has been imposed on us. So, I struggle to sort of put any blame on anyone that is unaware that they're actually in that game. because they're just playing the game as they see it, and you know, it's one of them things where the rules have been imposed on us, and they're only doing what they think they can do and what they've been told they can do.
Well, I seen something once by an ex-politician, and he said that it's government policy to cause problems between Muslims and Christians.
Correct, mate.
They want us fighting in the street. That is what they want.
Yeah.
They want us going to war with each other and fighting. It's government policy to basically stir up this hornet's nest. And they're doing a bloody good job. They're doing exactly what they need to do to stir up that hornet's nest, in my opinion. And so if you're dealing with the Islamic problem, whatever you want to call it, it's you're dealing with the symptom. You have to go straight to the cause. The root cause is the state. The state has to be taken apart, completely dismantled, and restoration of our rule of law, plain and simple. And no Sharia law, no changes to our old culture. They have to integrate. It's up to them to integrate. They want to live here.
Are a bad thing. Any religion and law is a bad thing, because you're putting something there that isn't proven, that is fantasy, and that is wildly open to interpretation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lopi, what video you got, babe?
Well, if somebody wants to play it, it's about a woman's perspective, what it's like to be in the Islamic State, and it's from it's a video of
Bloody Rupert Murdoch's. I can't play this, Lop. It's Sky News. It'll block the upload when it goes through. I'll get a copyright strike.
Oh, well,
it's not worth losing all this talking that we've done just for a 3 minutes video. Rupert Murdoch.
Can I make a point here, though, Lopi? Can I make a point, babe? So
yeah.
It's just like, for instance, I mean, what you say you are and what you believe you are isn't what you are if your actions do opposite. So, for instance, if you are a holy man, but you're also a paedophile, you're primarily the paedophile. You can't be that holy man if you're a paedophile, if you see what I'm saying. And what makes you the paedophile is your actions. So I totally go along with what you're saying about, you know, sort of like there are extremist Muslims out there that do treat ladies very terribly. And, you know, I'm in no way sticking up for them at all. But I think what people have got to get through is that, you know, it's a religion thing. I believe that you pick your religion, even though some people have their religion forced on them and they won't know anything else. Nowadays, it is an information-led society. So, you know, as we move forward as a human race, we've got more ability to actually change our fate and make ourselves into the people we want to be, rather than sort of like, you know, stick to the religion that we've been handed down generation after generation. But the simple fact is that if you're a paedophile and a holy man, you're primarily the paedophile. So if you're going to be, you know, people that want to abuse women, they are going to be primarily abusers rather than, you know, Muslims, for instance, because I'd think that most Muslims aren't, you know, into hurting ladies. I've got a few Muslim friends.
You're right.
I've never met a Muslim guy that wants to beat his woman.
Yeah, the Muslim religion tends to put women on a pedestal. The proper religion puts women on a pedestal. You don't talk back to your mum. Your mum is your world. When you move out of your house, make sure your mum is cared for. You know, but modern Muslims, you see, that's the difference between the Sunni and the Shiite and all them. Their views and on things because of religion, and like I said before, one is more easygoing and one's more what we would call barbaric, and those barbaric ones are the ones that we're looking at as the extremists.
Well,
They're
what
the
we've
ones
got to
that
do is we've got to educate them.
conditions.
Everyone needs to be educated, and it's not just about sort of like, scriptures and whatever else. It's emotional intelligence, that, and that's all our duty to do. If I see someone going wrong and I think that I can make them a better person, that I can encourage them to become a better person and point out faults to them that won't, in any way cause, again, injury, harm, or loss to anyone, that is my moral responsibility as a human being. Now, if that's against their religion, that's where religion is a bad thing, because you shouldn't have to worry about upsetting someone's belief system by making them a better person. That's where the belief system then falls down. And very, very, very often it does. For instance, as you rightly pointed out, Lopi, you said that a lot of Muslim guys absolutely adore their mums, and that is exactly what I've found. All my Muslim friends are absolutely brilliant with their mums. They've got more respect for their mum than anyone else alive. Now, then for instance, they will hear a right wing extremist, a Christian extremist, tell the world how badly the women are treated, when that Muslim guy that is absolutely besotted with his mum knows otherwise. He's only ever seen that his mum is to be absolutely worshipped, and now he's got someone that probably hasn't got any Muslim friends, probably hasn't got any information other than what they're reading from the Ragtop Sun or something similar to that, and is making assumptions wrongly that all Muslim men will beat their mother and have no respect for women, when they know the absolute opposite. So because of that, that will make them then want to, fight and rise.
Unfortunately, all religion is based on fear.
Yeah,
Christianity is based on fear. Islam is based on fear. The Jewish religion, I can't speak. Judaism is based on fear. All the religions are based on fear. The best way for people to become segregated is fear. It's like me.
yeah.
I'm a Muslim, and you've got this idea that, let's just say, my son's going to rape your daughter. Well, my son is
Yeah.
only 5 per se, and your daughter's however old, and you don't like my son and me because you're afraid. It's nothing to do with us.
That's the control
As individuals, it's fear, and that's what's creating the vortex that we're dealing with. This funnel cloud of
That's what we
hate.
need to educate.
That's the control system 101, Lopi. It's the carrot and the stick. You do something good, you get a reward. You're a naughty boy and you get a smack bum. It's heaven and hell in Christianity. If you're good, you get heaven. If you're bad, you get hell. It's so you get the fear on the one side and you get the reward on the other when you're good. It's this is, I mean, in the beginning, it was all religions and all that they used to control us, and that morphed into government. That's the way I see it. So it's a separate. Well, basically, you've got 2 control systems now. You usually got a religion and you've got government. So, I mean, you can choose not to have.
We've got come in now for about an hour and a half, and I'd like to morph back into the deep state, if you don't mind, if that's quite all right.
Absolutely.
You do what you want, babe.
I've got a picture here. If somebody could share it. Well, it's on an article, but it's about halfway down the page. It's a pyramid. I know we're all scared of pyramids thanks to the deep state, but
I love pyramids.
But it basically shows the levels of deep state, and unfortunately, we are the low lives at the very bottom. I can't do a screen share. It won't let me. Otherwise, I'd do it. But it's on down.
The Ponzi system, the world's Ponzi system, mate.
It's it's blue, white, and red, and it's a pyramid. It's after the videos, below the videos. I mean, if you go a bit down.
Do you want me to read it, Lopi?
I'm trying to bring
Play the video.
No, don't play the video. I'm saying somebody can read that. I can't see it very well.
You want me to read? You want me to read it? Yeah.
Yeah, if you would.
Okie doke. Here we go. What is the deep state? Thoughts, opinions, and theories on the deep state as nature and convention. The definition of the deep state that considers its actual meaning and Trumpian meaning from a realist and philosophical standpoint. Although the term deep state is as complex as what it describes, being a single term with many, sometimes dark and deep, implications in simple terms. The term deep state describes the part of government that stays around throughout different administrations, the ingrained establishment, state within a state, so to speak. Below, we describe the anatomy of the deep state, the nature of the deep state and its implications. Understanding the anatomy, nature, and implications of the deep state. When we say deep state, we aren't just talking about elected, hired, or appointed officials, but those and all the forces that surround them, many of which are unelected and come to power via wealth, merit, social networks, or bloodlines. This thing is left or right. It doesn't share social or economic stances, and it doesn't all want the same thing. It is, like a human body, many forces working in tandem, some coordinated, some not, all naturally organizing in a system and sharing power to create a Frankenstein's monster of sorts. In this sense, we can describe any network of forces with state-like power, despite not being subject to election, by another name too, a shadow government. With that said, in more complex and nuanced terms, the term deep state has many manifestations, which we can describe very generally as, number one, the deep state of a given nation, both those hired, appointed, and elected, and those who came to power without elections, both in the private and public sphere, the agencies, the contractors, the politicians, the lobbyists, etc. Number two, the entities within a given deep state. So, for example, a nation's intelligence community, a nation's major companies, and those individuals and groups they interface with, a deep state within a deep state. Number three, the international deep states, the body politics formed by collections of deep states and those that form and influence collections of deep states. So the international order that arises from the shared intentions of many deep states and what I'll call deep actors, those who have the power to affect global deep states. Taking America as an example then, when someone says deep state,
that part when you were talking, when it states the deep actors, the deep state recently has made apparent recently about the crisis actors. We're starting to people are starting to notice that there are groups of people who are infiltrating certain aspects of our protests, our marches, and everything, and they're the same people, and in all of these, and those are implemented or deep state actors who are implementing the ideals that the deep state are wanting people to do. Yeah. By creating a feeling like recently it's been debunked that the bald girl and the little boy that looks like a girl to
whether they're talking
that are free to get the guns.
I'm wondering if they're talking more about the actual elected officials as deep actors, because they all sort of on a bit of an act, don't they?
Yes, but these kids are doing what they are wanting them to do by creating an emotional pull on their agendas.
Anyway, I'll carry on reading, Lopi. You've got a good point there, but I'll carry on reading anyway. Taking America.
You don't have to read the whole thing because it gets rather extensive. You don't have to read the whole thing. It gets rather extensive. This last the paragraph you're about to read, that is good. Or I mean, the paragraph after is good, and then I'd like to go down to the graph, the picture of the pyramid.
Just read this paragraph then here, yeah.
Yeah, this one and the next, and then go down to the pyramid, and explain the pyramid.
Okay, what? So I'll read the second paragraph down, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So the Western Alliance, taking into account all the elites, oligarchs, militaries, ruling families, etc., is one flavour of deep state. Each force within the Western Alliance, such as intelligence communities, that moves freely and has its own intentions, is a form of deep state. The military state created by Erdogan is as equally a deep state as the secular deep state he purged. And deep state of Russia that opposes the Western Alliance, denoted by Russian oligarchs, the KGB, and long-standing Russian interests, is also a deep state. Germany's deep state that Hitler purged is a deep state. The bankers who Hitler took loans from are a form of deep state. The state Stalin purged is a deep state. The bankers Stalin took loans from, the Western Alliance that fought against them, etc., etc. In words, there isn't just one deep state, and thus what is meant by the term depends very much on context. That truism means we have a long page ahead of us. Also, the secrecy of a deep state means we have to tread a bit carefully when we make bold claims and have to consider that there is a lot of unknowns and mythology filling in the blanks.
Now, if you're going to the graph, the pyramid graph.
Okay. Okie dokie. Right.
Basically, it starts off. We're going to go into the bottom. In the lower class and consumer class, mostly rural workers who sell their labor, and the urban and rural peasants, the democracy is 60% and economy. Then you have the middle class, which are the consumers. They're at 20%. And then you've got the taxpayer upper class. They're 15%. They're the bourgeoisie, capitalists, and they have a low oligarchy. Then you have the wealth-based aristocracy. These are the lords and ladies in the upper oligarchy. They thrive on honor and duty, and they feel rather entitled. Then you have the nobility and royalty, the elected and appointed aristocracy, and democracy. Those are your prime ministers. That's your queen, your president. That's the sort of person. Then you've got this deep state philosopher kings with their morals and ethics. They are on top of everybody else. They're not more nobility or royalty. They are all the above and everything. They are what we have already devised as the puppet masters. And as Stav has shown,
can I point something out? Yeah,
there's a massive amount of them, and not all of them are of the aristocracy.
Can I point something out here, guys?
Yeah.
Go for it, Chris.
Yeah, all of the people are gatekeepers for the ones that are above them. Even the gatekeepers have now got gatekeepers, and everyone is working out that they need a gatekeeper. And it's trying to rise up through all these gatekeepers that are basically, withholding the access to the next level.
And the only way we're going to do it is by storming that. You know, it's going to take a mass, because, you know, as an ordinary person, you can phone someone up. I mean, most of you guys will probably be aware that I make quite a few phone calls, and I can never get to the manager. I can never get to the bloke that's at the top of the tree. Is all I keep getting is a gatekeeper. And even the gatekeepers are now having gatekeepers, and it's all getting lost in the mix. Pretty soon, it's going to be, you know, just people power that's going to have to force the hand.
Yeah, I quite agree.
I'd totally agree with that assertion, Chrisy.
Gatekeepers have gatekeepers. How funny.
Yeah.
And it's got more skins than a bloody onion. You know, and the other thing is the main trick to keeping power is knowing who is who and where is where. That's, you know, the old saying, which is bang correct about, you know, information is power. And it's knowing who gives the actual orders. And when you sort of like look at it, I mean, everyone goes on about the 1%. It's probably the 0.1% that are actually running everything, because, you know, that everyone's taking their orders, apart from the rebellious, apart from the very top and the very rebellious bottom. But even to a point, I mean, I put myself down as a rebel. I don't really listen to anything but my moral compass that tells me what to do, what's right and what's wrong. But I'm still living in the system, and the system is still controlling me. And as much as I might think I've got the freedom, they've got the system in place. So it's going to take everyone to turn around and sort of like and change that system. Hopefully, you know, we can all do it just by using our brains and sort of, you know, changing what we give power to.
I'm afraid to say, Chrissy, I think it's going to take a little bit more courage than that, and it's going to result in a bit of blood in the street. I got a feeling that I think that's the only way it's going to end up. It usually ends up with a coup when these sort of things happens, and the coup is usually a very bloody coup. And I don't think there's going to be any way you can defeat them using their system, because it's their system. A lot of people say lawful rebellion, and I think, although a nice idea, I'm afraid I'm going to have to say that it's well, you're using their game. You can't defeat them.
I don't know. I think if we can, you know, we can use their system against them by doing stuff that they never thought was possible. You know, they've not thought of all the variables. It's been, their system has been a work in progress. And, you know,
The thing is, Chris,
if we can try and assess where the, I thought I turned my phone off. If we can assess where the weaknesses are and then go for them. And, you know, my favourite one would be that everyone draw their money out of the bank on the same day. You know, even if it was a few £100, just go to the bank on the same day. Everyone pick a day. Everyone go and draw all your money out of the bank, or as much as you can. And all of a sudden, there'd be a run on the banks, and everyone would realise that that ain't really their money, and they ain't really got it because they can't really get to it. And that would send such a chill up the spine of the machine that it would, you know, we would gain some ground. And then, yeah, and you've got all the workers. They all know they're being treated like absolute crap. They're being paid stupid money. You know, they're getting all. Everyone knows that the system is corrupt. If we was to do a national strike day, not teachers coming out on a Tuesday and bloody railway staff coming out on a Thursday. Everyone do it for a day and watch the system just take a knee. You know, and hopefully they'd realise that, you know, we have got it, that we can come together. That our disunity, which brings us back to the original subject, which is sort of like Islamic State, deep state, blah, blah, blah. Everyone's fighting over what to do when everyone needs to come together and work out what to do.
I think it'd take more than an all-out strike, general strike for just a day, to be honest. It'd take
you're right.
a hell of a lot more.
A good start.
I'll tell you what it would take, and there would have to be absolute solidarity. That means everybody, literally, to shut down this country. You would have to literally shut it down. You'd have to blockade the entire part of central city of London, the greater mile, the square mile is city of London. They'd have to completely blockade it continuously, and a general strike and everything all at the same time, and show them that.
You know what? I'll make you right on that one. And just a general strike wouldn't do it in itself, but it would be a massive start. It would show the people they've got power. It would show the authorities that they haven't got as much power as they thought they had, because they've underestimated it. I think, I'm hoping they've underestimated us really badly. And, just that show would help, because we do need a system. I'm not saying I agree with the system we've got right now, but we do need a system. We can't just have chaos on the streets and whatever else. It just needs to be a lot fairer. It's been taken advantage of. The system's been taken advantage of by the greedy, and
I will say something, Chrisy. I think you're right there, but when you get a handful of people doing lawful rebellion and that's going to have no effect whatsoever. And I'll tell you.
No, you're right. Yeah.
I'll tell you why that is, because even if they find little loopholes, ways around the things, they'll work for a while, and then the system will just move the goalposts again. They'll keep moving the goalposts to counteract it. So all you're doing is strengthening their arm. In a way, you're strengthening.
All right, so we're coming on to the 2-hour mark now, and I'd like to go ahead and say one sorry about my Ziggy. She's wanting to put her 2 cents in, and but I wanted to go ahead and start wrapping up with everybody's final thoughts. PJ, would you like to start?
Opportunity tonight. Yeah, sure. Well, we've talked about Islamic State, deep state, various details, right, and in depth, to some degree. But I just want to point out that it doesn't matter which religion it is, like Chris has pointed out before earlier tonight. This statism, if you want a religion to look at, statism, that's the one. If we can all try and get over that, so we don't have to be statists, and we can help people be more independent and look after themselves, and not having to believe in a system that's made by man, then we might be able to move on. But we do need a system. We can't have chaos, even though, Geoff, yeah, I know anarchy is not chaos, but still, I think, this whole thing is this belief in a statist, a statist life. And I'm, to be honest, quite sick of it.
Oh, I think you're right, PJ. I think statism is the most damaging and dangerous religion of the lot. Absolutely.
Oh, most definitely, yeah. So, Tommy Robinson, stop talking about it now. Let's talk about statism, if you're listening.
Sarah, what would you like to say? Are you there? I think he's gone quiet again. Okay.
Sorry, did you say me? Yeah.
No, I was talking to Sarah, but I don't think he's awake again. So go on.
Well, I just got one. I just wanted to share. I couldn't get in. I tried. I had mic problems and all sorts. I just wanted one little article I wanted to share, and it'd probably be close to you, Lopi, as you had spent your childhood in the last remainings of the Ataturk period, which came out of the Ottoman Empire because of what the Ottoman Empire done to Turkey and the whole area. More recently, up until First World War, so the Ottoman Empire didn't shrink till then. So it's not that long ago, and it was just something by a pro, should we say, Islamic website. Actually, I just wanted to just on the closing thoughts. If I could just very quickly go for it, it'll take about 3 or 4 minutes to read it. Okay, I'll just share the screen. Oh, excuse me. Right, can you see this?
So far, so good, my darling.
Right, this is the home feed. It's basically a website which is pro. It's Muslim World Politics Society. It's what it is. And it's just, I wonder if you were there after you as a child, whether they were already in place. It's 7 ways Turkey has become more Islamic under the leadership of President Erdogan. And the modern Turkish state was born out of the fall of the Ottoman Empire, which led to the abolition of the Islamic Caliphate. Kemal Ataturk, known as the founder of the Turkey, introduced a number of reforms which diminished the role of Islam in the country. Madrasas were closed, religion's clothing was banned, and call to prayer was changed from Arabic to Turkish. A host of other secular laws were introduced. Turkey has remained highly secular for a number of decades and continues to be so to this day. However, the ruling Justice and Development Party, AKP, under the leadership of Tayyip Erdogan, former Prime Minister, now President, has reversed some of the laws introduced by Ataturk and have in effect made Turkey more Islamic. Thousands of mosques built, okay? According to the Atlantic, 17,000 new mosques have been built by the Turkish government between 2002 2013. Many more mosques are currently under development and around the country, and significant amounts have been spent refurbishing Ottoman-era mosques. 2. Hijab bans lifted. The hijab was banned in the public sector, banning teachers, lawyers, parliamentarians and other workers in the state-run institutions from wearing it. In recent years, the Justice and Development Party have lifted bans wearing the hijab in the schools and state institutions. In November 2015, a female judge became the first woman to conduct a trial in Turkey wearing a headscarf, Al-Arabiya. In August 2015, Asian Gurkhan became the first hijab-wearing government minister, Al-Arabiya. 1 million students enroll in Imam Hatip schools. Imam Hatip schools are vocational education institutions designed to provide religious education and train imams. Mosques in Turkey are government appointed, and many imams are trained in Imam Hatip schools. These schools were founded after madrasas were banned under Ataturk's reforms. In 2002, there were 65,000 students involved in Imam Hatip schools. The number grew to 685,000 in 2013, and recently Bilal Erdogan, who is a spearhead in the expansion of Imam Hatip schools, announced that the number of students has now reached 1 million, the Turkey analysts. 4. Compulsory religious education introduced. Compulsory religious education classes were introduced by the government across Turkish schools. Courses on the life of the Prophet Muhammad and the Quran has also been introduced, the Turkey analyst. President Erdogan has been quoted as saying, "Do we want to raise a religious youth? Do you expect the Conservative Democrat AK party to raise an atheist generation? That might be your business, your mission, but not ours. We will raise a conservative and democratic generation embracing the nation's values and principles." 5. Age limit on the Quran on courses abolished. Children have to be at least 12 years old before they could attend Quran classes. This was abolished by a ruling government allowing young children to attend Quran classes. In 2013, a project was launched for the provision of the Quran courses for preschoolers, the Turkey analyst. Restrictions placed on alcohol sale and advertisement. Secular Turkey has allowed the sale of alcohol in majority Muslim country. The Justice and Development Party passed a bill in 2013 introducing a ban on advertising alcohol within 100 meters of a mosque or school, blurring out depictions of alcohol on television and films, and was also made mandatory. Reuters. Student dormitories, health institutions, sports clubs, education institutions, gas stations have been banned from selling alcohol in the premises, and all sale of alcohol after 10 p.m. is banned elsewhere. Harriet Daily News. 7. Expansion of Islamic banking. All right. Expansion of Islamic banking. Islamic banking has vastly expanded in recent years. The state-owned Ziraat Islamic Bank is expected to have 170 branches by 2018, Daily Sabah. In recent speech, the Turkish president has called the interest-based banking system cruel and also talked about the benefits of Islamic banking. This is what he said. If we are to jump forward, we need to grow within a real participation system rather than this cruel one. Islamic financing is a completely different system from the current banking system in terms of its asset-backed structure, its reliance on risk share, and its structure closed to speculation. I believe that this system will be the driving force behind the Turkish economy. Right, there we go. I thought I'd read you that and leave you with that thought.
If you go up, you were asking how much it changed. If you go up to the beginning of the bullets, I'll go through and explain the difference. As you stated, and as I've stated in the past, I did grow up being of the last generation of the Ataturk Empire, or Ataturk era, whatever you want to call it. Back when modernism and the Western world was good for Turkey. It's still good for Turkey. Unfortunately, we have Erdogan. Now, the first one, it says thousands of mosques are built. When I lived in Turkey, in the early 80s, there was a lot of mosques, but there was also churches. There was also synagogues. There were other religions. It wasn't all mosque. You heard your call of prayer all the time. That was a normal. You did not hear church bells because it was a Muslim dominated country. And when in Rome, do as the Romans do. As far as the second one, the hijab ban lifted. Well, women in Turkey, we didn't call them. If you look at the photo, they look like there's only one lady, two ladies that looks like they're actually wearing a proper hijab. Yeah, the rest of them look like they're wearing regular headscarves. Now, when I lived in Turkey, they wore headscarves, and there is a difference between a headscarf and a hijab. It's the way that it is presented. The lady with the flowers on, with the white, and that's a headscarf. That's not a hijab by proper terms. That's what ladies in England old ladies cover their head with, so the wind doesn't mess their hair up. A hijab is what that lady in the black jacket and the black scarf is wearing. It's tightly around her face. All you see is her face. You cannot see her hair. We had the scarves there all the time. You rarely saw a woman in a hijab, and if she was wearing one, she was usually wearing the typical Turkish Muslim, robe, dress, whatever you want to call it. The the bottom part of a burqa.
Yeah, it's that one there. Yeah, you can see it covers her whole face around her neck and everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So what's the next one? Million students enrolled in Hatip schools. Do you know anything about that?
Did not have those when I was growing up. What they did do was their focus on education was more vocational and professional. It was not religious based.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted to go and learn about the religion, you went to the mosque.
Okay.
It was not in school.
Religion should have no place in education.
Well, that's what he's bringing in big stuff. Number 4, compulsory religious education introduced. Compulsory.
Basically, that's it says the life of Muhammad. Well, that's part of what was taught in the mosque.
Yeah, but this is compulsory in all schools.
Yeah, but that we didn't have that over there during my time. It was not a mandatory thing. It was something you were taught at mosque.
Right. Okay. Well, all I'm doing is just basically I wanted to run through it. Now we're getting on a bit of time.
I know. I'm explaining that you wanted to know the difference between then and now.
Yes, so I wanted to see I wanted you to say whether the article was full of rubbish or whether it had some, truth to it. So there we are.
Well,
and what did you think he had to say there?
What did
We want to raise a religious youth. Do you expect Conservative Democrat AK Party to raise an atheist generation?
no, actually, I don't believe that it created atheists because religion is something that your family brings up, and religion is not something you are taught in school, and it should never be taught in school because then it creates a certain mindset, and that's what Erdogan's doing. He's trying to create a certain mindset.
Right.
Religious
Okay. So
people
number
don't require as much evidence. They're easier to control, easier to
It's like teaching you.
manipulate.
It's teaching you.
Right, yeah, okay. Well, listen, I don't want to hold it up too long, lads. Sorry to interject. Age limit on Quran courses abolished.
Well, when I went on my God quest, because I was quite young, and thankfully I had my mum and and I had supporters to go with me on my quest, and we had our maid Hatice. She was a Turkish lady. She took me to her mosque, and she knew that because I was a child on a quest for God, wanting to find out about Muhammad and any sort of religion, trying to find out who God was. That she had to have I had to have her as a liaison in order to be heard, because that right there, the age limit.
12 years. 12 years.
Young.
12 years.
They
12
would
years
not have spoke to me.
Can I give you my final thoughts then, folks?
I just
Hang on.
Geoff. Restrictions placed on alcohol sale. Well, you never had that.
There was alcohol everywhere in Turkey.
Right.
I mean,
Okay, the last one. No,
same with cigarettes, pornography.
Yeah, well, he wants to wipe alcohol out eventually. I read somewhere, but anyway, expansion of Islamic banking. This is very important.
As far as an international level, that may have changed, but on a national level in Turkey, there's no change because there was Turkish banks all over the place.
But what they won't tell you here is they may get rid of interest at charge of loans or whatever, but they won't tell that you have to pay a zakat tax on it.
Yeah, is that we
So
call it?
you know, you get rid of the interest, but you bang on zakat. So you know, there's no difference really. But they won't say it in this. But I just thought that's a pro-Islamic website, and he was just saying that that these changes. So across the board, do you think that's a legit article saying these are the changes that they did actually take place and Erdogan has pushed through?
Yes. It's become much more strict, much more pro-Islam, much more segregated, less tolerant, very hypocritic, meaning, oh, we want your tourism, we want your interests, we want to be a part, but they at the same time they want to be separate.
Right. So if you go to southern Turkey now as an English holiday maker, like a lot of English people do go to Turkey. Now, if you don't get a drink before 10 o'clock, you won't be served anymore because it's against the law for them to serve you.
No.
That's
you
right.
won't.
So perhaps the English holiday makers should consider that when they go to Turkey. I think it's going to become more Islamic Turkey as it's going, because I mean that's what the man's has actually openly admitted and said. So this is what you're dealing with. A former Ottoman Empire, then Ataturk came along and gave a secular type taste to the country, and now Turkey's going back to an Islamic type state. So let's not just
time and his era, Ataturk's era. It was more tolerant. It was more. I wouldn't say it was more. I would say it was more free. The Turks were not so um boxed in into what they can and can't do. Now they're boxed in.
What I'm saying is, if you expect Turkeys to come here and live, people from Turkey, and to abide by our rules, but remember, as the years go on, these two countries will go back to being Islamic states. So bear that in mind. There we go. That's all I wanted to say. I wanted to run that past you because I know you've got a lot of you know what you're talking about, Lopi. I've never lived there. Few Brits have gone there for a couple of weeks on holiday and got smashed out their skulls in the Ataturk days.
Yeah,
you know, and that's fine. That's fine. That's what people want to do. That's great.
And they don't venture out past the Marmaris or the tourist sites, and that's the whole point of from the Turkish standpoint. You don't have the tourists come into the outside neighborhoods of the tourist area. You know, we always call it a tourist trap, and that's exactly what it is. It's a tourist trap.
Yeah. So even what I'm saying is, if these say Europe start to adopt these rather liberal rules and say, well, it's quite good. People shouldn't be getting drunk at 10 o'clock after night. I think we'll bring some of those into our rules in Europe, and before you know where you are, maybe, you know, people may actually appreciate that. That's not for me to say, but you know, the days for those perhaps Muslims on the continent, if it starts to adopt more liberal rules like this, of eating bacon sandwiches and drinking pints of beer after 10 o'clock, will be gone. So it's just a thought. I just think it's worth considering that.
Can I give you my final thoughts, folks?
I'm finished, yes.
Okie dokie. Well, I've got a few points to make briefly. And that is what Chrisy was saying, that religion shouldn't be taught in school because it's a dogma. All religions teach you what to think, not how to think.
Indoctrination.
Yes, it's in pure indoctrination in its highest form. So I'm totally in agreement with Chrisy on that. Yes, the Islamic State is becoming more strict. It's getting back to more. It's an increase in religion, if you like. Definitely. All these controllers, the fat controllers in all these countries, they know exactly what they're doing. They're all working together. I believe they're all working together for basically two things, and that is full spectrum dominance and which includes globalization and total control in every sense of the word, which is a destruction of democracy in every form. So you have no say on anything. The state decides, you do. It's as simple as that. Full spectrum dominant. And the other thing is depopulation. So by depopulation, a continual state of war throughout the world. That is, you know, don't expect there to be any peace anytime soon. It's depopulation is their policy, and that means in every sense of the word. So they're going to throw absolutely everything at everybody continuously. Continual states of war, conventional warfare. That's going to be par for the course throughout the world, and that's not going to change anytime soon. Full spectrum dominance and depopulation. That's the two things you've got to bear in mind at all times. And this is all part of it. All these things, like the change in religions and ways of life in these countries that they're doing, it's all about creating the hornet's nest to stir up these. They want us fighting each other because it saves them on bullets, basically. If they get us fighting each other in the streets, which is their policy, I don't think they realise when they set this plan in action to turn Muslims against Christians and all that in the UK, how tolerant the British people really are. We are so tolerant, they consider us unreasonably tolerant. And they expected us by now to be fighting in the bloody streets, killing each other off.
They thought there was more extremists.
Yeah, well, this is it. This is all part of the depopulation agenda. You know, if we kill each other off, brilliant. That's all the better for them. That's exactly what they want. It's then they bring in more and more draconian laws, you know, and ridiculous destruction of our freedoms. This is all part of it. This is all part of full spectrum dominance, globalization, and depopulation. That's what it's all about to them. You have to deal with the deep state at the core. That's the very first. Everything else is a symptom of that.
All right, Chrisy, what's your final thoughts?
Well, I always go back to main focus, and I think the main focus is educating the children, the next generation. We have got the opportunity now to finish a lot of these religions off, to finish off, you know, all sorts of the bad stuff that's going on in the world, because we can, if we educate our children properly and show them that, you know, that religion is actually fantasy, we can literally make a better generation. And all of the world's problems usually come from a lack of communication and a lack of information, and getting the next generation wise to exactly what's happening is going to be the way forward. You know, it's we need to stop telling our children that, you know, they're hated by other people that they've never ever met.
I quite agree.
Yeah, there's, you know, that's the trick to it. Because, you know, you're not born hating people. You're taught that. You're exposed to that. Now the world's a stage, they say, and like Geoff was saying, they're all in it together. I think, you know, they like us all being divided, and the simple fact is that if you've got a hero, you need a villain. Now, to us, the villains might be Muslim countries, you know, Islam. To them, the villain are Christian countries, you know, the West. So in effect, the leaders have worked out that if we see them as the enemy and they see us as the enemy, but we don't actually do each other too much harm, that, you know, they're going to be in perpetual power. So, you know, having these enemies that we don't know, I mean, I struggle to think. I mean, I'm sitting in a kitchen right now talking about, you know, this, and I think there's probably someone sitting in a kitchen in a Middle Eastern country, Iraq, Afghanistan, something like that, and I can't believe that they think that all us Westerners want to kill them. It's just how it's portrayed, and we've all just got to get along. We've got to learn to get along. We've got to understand that, even though, I mean, you know, I'm a big guy for culture. You know, I like my history and stuff like that, but history always changes. You know, cultures change. Cultures get mixed with other cultures, and they benefit from that, and everyone gets more understanding. And 100 years ago, you know, you would have people from different continents that could never meet, that would be completely unaware of each other's cultures, and that would obviously cause a clash. Well, we've not got that excuse now. We've got the ability to learn about other cultures, to understand other cultures, and it's all there for us. And the more we understand each other, and the more we communicate with each other, and don't take for granted what we're told, the better the world's going to be. Yeah. And that is the day that the elites fear.
Quite right. What you were saying reminded me of a video I watched before of a Palestinian and an Orthodox Jew, and the Palestinian basically was doing a video about himself and blah blah blah, and the Jew come walking up, and the first thing he said was really nasty, and then they started talking. Yeah. And then the Jew's sister comes up and says, "Oh, why are you talking to that dog?" You know, and his brother, her brother, the Jew, said, "Don't talk about him like that. He's just like you and me." "Oh no, you're not right." Now, the irony is they never knew each other. and they are two different religions, and they were, but because of media and what they were told, drawn
They
to
thought
hate
they
each
had to
other.
hate each other.
And guess what?
See, the problem
They
is
became
people start conversations. They start conversations from different areas. They start conversations from their differences to someone else, and that is a completely wrong way to begin it. You know, if I've had plenty of rows on platforms like this, but I always try to come from the common ground, from somewhere that someone else can understand. Because if you start to understand someone, you start to be able to learn from them, and things get that much easier. And for instance, if I was to speak to a racist guy, I wouldn't be coming in from, well, you're ignorant, because that is never going to win that guy over. The way I'd come in from is, do you want a better world for our children, regardless of what color they are, regardless of what you think about, sort of like someone that has a different skin color? Do you want to make a better world for our children? Not for just your children, not for just my children, for all the children. Wouldn't it be great if we could all just put all our differences behind us and work for a better world, that everyone can have a better life and gain more from, rather than coming in from a angle that he's never going to be able to get over, which might be, for instance, you're ignorant because you see different colors of skin. And that is what I actually would think about the guy, that if you're racist, you're ignorant. But the way to reach out to someone is plant the seeds and let them see that you're not so different. And it's just like, you've got a Muslim and a Christian. The two religions are basically intertwined. They both complement each other. They're both using similar idols and stuff like that. I do believe that both religions are complete fiction. I'll go back to something that Geoff said earlier on about being able to read the Quran at 12. Well, I believe you should be able to read any book of that type from any age, but you should be told from the start that they're fiction. It's a massive thing. Massive fact is fiction.
Another way to integrate differences with people and to get people to talk is with food. Food
Yes.
is a universal way of gathering minds, and if all else fails, you have a food fight. So
I like that one. Back to Turkey. I think what's what's his name? Or I always get it wrong. The Turkish guy. I think what he's doing, he's trying to get the have the cake and eat it, as we say over here. He would love everyone to be a religious person, because religious people are easier to control and easier voters. That, if you've got it in you that you're as a religion you must do this, that will make you an easy sell when election time comes around. But also he wants to make those moderate, because extremists make problems, and problems isn't what he would want. So I think any world leader, any leader of any country, would always want to make their electorate moderate, religious.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and Surfer, your final chance for your final thoughts before I go and say mine.
Tell him,
Surfer,
Surf's up.
No, you go ahead, Lopi. I've just been listening. Thanks.
All right, my darling. Good to hear your voice, though. My final thoughts. The Islamic and deep state are two sides of the same coin. And before anybody goes and jumps on me about it, here's my reason. One is religion and everything. They're all the same. They have the same concept. They have the same agendas. They want power. They want money. They want control. You can't change. You can't dethrone one. You can't dethrone the deep state, and you can't overthrown the Islamic State, the powers of the Islamic State, because in order for you to destroy the Islamic State, you must destroy the ideal of that backs it, and that is religion. We cannot destroy a person's thoughts or religious views. Otherwise, we are now the dictators we are fighting to abolish. What we can do and must do is learn tolerance, understanding, and to learn to love each other in for what little things we can love about each other. We're going to drive each other nuts. We're going to want to bash each other's head against the wall. But in the end of the day, we can't do that. End of the day, there's going to be something that person that drives you nuts is going to make you laugh. He's going to make you think. He's going to make you a better person. Just by you not going and bashing his head against the wall makes you a better person. By listening to what he's got to say. And you may not agree with it. That's your right. But as the golden rule says, you do unto others as you would want them to do unto you. It's not that I'm promoting either of the two. What I am promoting is understanding, compassion, education. Ignorance is bliss. When you don't understand and you don't know, it's easy for everybody to hate and to segregate and to point fingers and to blame. And I guess that's the end of what I've got to say. Anybody else?
I'll finish with a 2-minute video, Lopi, if you don't mind. That's if I can get it to screen share. And then we'll end it tonight. Just let me know if you can see this all right when it comes up.
I can see.
Yeah, we can see that.
All right, guys, just mute up quickly and I'll play this.
If the hippies and the yippies and the disruptors of the systems that Washington and Lincoln as presidents brought forth in this country will shut up and work within our free system of government, I will lower my voice.
Okay, that's about it, I think, for that one.
Cheers, guys. It's been emotional.
Nice one. Thanks for joining, guys.
you.
Cheers, Chrisy.
Love you loads, guys. Take care. Yeah, see you soon.
Yeah, cheers, Chrisy. See you later.
See, cheers, PJ. Cheers, Stav, Lopi. And
love you all. Night, guys.